Hello, and welcome to part 3 of African Civilizations. Today, we will talk about the spread of Islam in Africa, the Kingdom of Mali and its ruler, Mansa Musa, and the importance of the Trans-Saharan Trade Route. Today, we'll start out with a map that shows the spread of Islam in Africa from 630 to 1700 CE. You'll find that it takes root in North Africa early on in the 600s and then slowly spreads throughout Africa over the next 1,000 years. So why did all these people want to convert to Islam? The people of Africa found Islam to be a stabilizing factor they were missing. North Africa had been ruled over by Christian nations like Rome, and it had very negative interactions with other Christian nations like the Byzantines. They were tired of the power struggles and political instability offered by Christian nations. With Islam came strict moral and legal codes that they were able to create a more stable society. Islam also allowed for more blending of original African cultures, whereas Christianity, these places were told they couldn't continue on with their old beliefs. Overall, Islam won out. It's also good to note that African converts chose to convert. No one forced them to, unlike Christianity in this region. Islam will travel with merchants down south along the Nile River into present-day Sudan and Ethiopia. By the 15th century, most of this region will convert to Islam. If you remember from our first episode, Christianity will still have some presence here. Ethiopia, for example, will remain about 50% Christian even up to present day. Conversion happens a lot slower on the East Coast. It isn't until 1400 that the majority of the East will convert. Gradually, the spread of Islam will travel southwards into the Sahel region of West Africa, and somewhat later from the East Coast westwards into the interior of East Africa. The Berbers were a group that originated in North Africa and are a well-known trading community. The Berbers will trade across the Sahara to West Africans in Sahel. The main goods traded were gold, salt, and ivory. This trade route becomes known as the Gold-Salt Trade Route, or the Trans-Saharan Trade Route. This trade route will be relevant for the next 1,000 years. Throughout West Africa's history, they are known for their large supply of gold. They even used to supply gold to the Romans for all of their currency and jewelry needs. Islam is first introduced to this area from the Gold-Salt Trade Route. By the 12th century CE, many Berbers had converted to Islam and were preaching it during their travels. In order to gain more converts, the Berbers even started traveling with Muslim clerks and scholars to interact with local rulers. That's pretty smart. Bring highly educated people with you and win over local rulers. These Muslim advisors began to become extremely valuable to rulers as they give them advice on trade, security, and government. After rulers were converted, it would still take generations to convert the rest of the population, but rulers did make active efforts to convert their citizens. Conversion to Islam often happened gradually by adopting some Islamic practices while maintaining some indigenous beliefs. This is one of the fundamental reasons Islam will appeal more to people in this region than Christianity does. You will see in both Mali and Songhai that Islam is the primary religion of these great East African kingdoms. Let's take a closer look at West African kingdoms and trade. The Gold-Salt Trade Route led to a lot of wealthy empires in Western Africa. By 800, Ghana had become a large empire by taxing merchants, building a large army, and by conquering all of their neighbors. Eventually, the Kingdom of Ghana was overthrown, and the Mali Empire emerges. Mali's king, Sundiata, took over Ghana and trade cities in Western Africa. Sundiata created an efficient government, promoted farming, and controlled trade all over this region. The kings who ruled after Sundiata converted to Islam. The most important of these kings is Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa will rule from around 1312 to 1337 CE. Mansa Musa does a lot of great administrative things for Mali. He does things like divide Mali into provinces ruled by an appointed governor, very similar to the Persians. He is also known for keeping the largest standing army, around 100,000 men, to keep control over Mali. With the amount of gold in Mali at this time, Mansa Musa is known as one of the richest people in all of human history. Mansa Musa was a devout Muslim and made a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. He would spend most of his reign fostering Islam throughout his empire. In his procession along his way to Mecca, he brought with him 60,000 men, all wearing Persian silk. This party also included 12,000 slaves who each carried 4-pound gold bars. All of the camels he brought with him had gold dust in their saddlebags. Mansa Musa gave the gold to the poor that he met along his travels. When he would enter cities, his servants would toss gold into the streets. Mansa Musa gave away so much gold that it caused massive inflation in the cities he visited. Prices would not go back to normal for over a decade after he had left. He is so well known for this throughout the Mediterranean that when Europeans draw maps of African civilizations, all they know to draw where East Africa is Mansa Musa, the richest man in the world, which is the picture that you see on this slide. It's also worth noting that his travels were really well documented. From the far reaches of the Mediterranean Sea to the Indus River, the faithful approached the city of Mecca. All had the same objective to worship together at the most sacred shrine of Islam, the Kaaba, in Mecca. One such traveler was Mansa Musa, Sultan of Mali in Western Africa. Mansa Musa had prepared carefully for the long journey he and his attendants would take. He was determined to travel not only for his own religious fulfillment, but also for recruiting teachers and leaders so that his realms could learn more of the Prophet's teachings. When he returned from Mecca, Mansa Musa built mosques throughout his empire, and he also established this new major trade city, Timbuktu. This trade city attracted scholars, doctors, and religious leaders from all around Africa and for the rest of the Islamic world to come there to Timbuktu. It had a university, and it became the most important center for Islamic learning in this area. Timbuktu was even well known in Europe, where merchants from Venice and Granada added Timbuktu to their maps as a place to trade manufactured goods for gold. The university and several mosques still remain in Timbuktu today. After Mansa Musa dies, Mali started declining and was eventually replaced by the Songhai Empire. Their kings gained control of all those major trade cities along the gold-salt trade route and inherited a lot of Mali's former wealth. Songhai grew into the largest of the West African empires that we know of today, even bigger than Mali. Its fall will happen in 1591, which ends a 1,000-year period of empires in Western Africa. This concludes our series on African civilizations. Thanks for watching.